I know Arjun is standing by, and it looks like it's back to the future, Arjun.
Exactly, Emily. Just rocked up in my car from the 1980s, and how things are different these days. We've been talking about the future of transportation with electric vehicles, but there's now a very big focus on autonomous vehicles. And look, when I was living in China in 2018 to 2021, it was fascinating to see how fast things were developing there. And on the other hand, you've also got the US pushing ahead with its own autonomous driving testing. The question is, how close are we to mass-scale adoption of this technology, where there's a future where driverless cars are all over the roads? That's some of the discussion I had with James Peng, the CEO of Pony.ai, one of the leading autonomous driving companies here at Converge Live. Let's just listen in.
On the open streets of the Beijing, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Shanghai, the local residents can already using our app, just called Pony.ai, or they can use the third-party ride-hailing apps to actually hail in a ride, just like you are using an Uber or Grab. So that's the way it is already working. And the local residents, while you hail in the vehicle will come in without a driver behind the wheel. And it can take you wherever you specified in your app. So I think the experience itself is already quite just like a typical taxi. And on those streets, typically we have 20 to 25 paid customers, paid rides per day, per vehicle. So we can see it's already a popular service in the local area. I think now the challenge is how we can quickly scale them up.
So I think about 3 years ago, there was still a driver behind the wheel in the robo-taxis in China in particular. But now, like you said, you can hail an autonomous car via the app. How did you go so quickly from having a safety driver through to completely driverless? And specifically, I guess, in China, you've got operations in Guangzhou, Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. What has happened in China that's allowed this rapid development?
Yeah, it seems rapid from the get-go, from 1,000 miles away. But actually, it has took us 6 years from the first trial to become fully driverless. Our fully driverless cars first rolled out at the end of 2022. So it's about a bit more than 2 years now. Of course, behind the scene, it has been countless miles of testing, the improvements of AI algorithm, and of course, most importantly, a deep collaboration with OEM, so we can fit the vehicles with sensors and AI algorithms and make them safe on the road. Our record actually show that the average safety of our autonomous driving vehicles is about a magnitude, almost 10x safer than a typical human drivers in the same place.
And you also have operations in the US. What do you think are the main differences between China's approach at this point to autonomous driving and robo-taxis versus what's happening in the US?
I think overall, they're quite similar. They're same vehicles with sensors and AI algorithms. But I think there are two major differences. One is the driving conditions is quite different. I think in most of the major cities in China, the streets are typically more crowded, and there's more pedestrians and cyclists. So I think the predictability of the road conditions is a bit harder on the roads in China. Another major difference, I think, is the supply chain of all the sensors and the chips and also the vehicles itself, especially the battery-powered electrical vehicles. I think because of the ecosystem is maturing, the cost of autonomous driving vehicles in China is generally much cheaper than what's in the US. So I think those are the two major differences.
The question now is how to scale. So in your view, what does scaling look like? What is the path to getting autonomous driving? And I assume this is probably going to be first in China for now, as you see it in terms of the approach. But how do you get to a broader scale and adoption?
Yeah, I think now is a critical point for the scaling up. Because the the technology is maturing. The cost of the vehicle is quickly dropping. Last year we signed a deal with GAC, with Toyota, and with BAIC. So we have 3 car manufacturers collaborating with us on manufacturing the autonomous driving vehicles. The cost of those vehicles is dropping to the level where it's less than around 280,000 RMB. So it's a bit 40,000 USD. So it's the price itself is dropped to almost like a regular car. So I think now is really we're at the beginning of a large-scale adoption, and probably in a year or two you will see tens of thousands of vehicles on the road.
Now look, there's so many players in autonomous driving right now trying to solve this. You have Tesla, you have Waymo, you have the Chinese EV players as well. And I think there are a number of challenges before we get to some of that mass scale rollout, what was revealed in some of that conversation there with James Peng. The likes of regulation, the technology as well, mapping very complex cities, particularly in places like Europe as well, and consumer acceptance. Now, I've been in a driverless car where there's been a safety driver in the driver's seat, not necessarily touching the wheel, but it gave a sense of security to some instance. It'd be interesting to see how I feel if I get into a driverless car without a driver, and that's, I think, going to be a big challenge here in terms of broad-scale consumer adoption. But look, I can tell you, living in London, I definitely prefer not to drive and to have driverless cars all over the streets. But look, there's plenty more from here at Converge Live after this break, so please stick with CNBC and Street Signs. See you after the break.